Throughout history, there have always been stories about powerful weapons. Blades that never miss, spears that cannot be stopped, objects that turn ordinary warriors into something far more dangerous. But in many of these stories, the power isn't free. It comes with a cost. Sometimes that cost is subtle, and sometimes it's immediate. These are weapons that don't just win battles. They take something from the person who uses them. In Norse legend, there was a sword called Tyrfing. It was forged by dwarves under force, and they made sure it would never be ordinary. Tyrfing could cut through anything. It never missed its target, and once drawn, it had to take a life before it could be sheathed again. At first, that sounds like the perfect weapon, until you realize what that means. The wielder doesn't decide when it kills, the sword does. And over time, Tyrfing brought destruction not just to enemies, but to those who carried it. Because a weapon that always demands blood eventually turns on everything around it. The spear Gungnir was said to be perfect. When thrown, it never missed. It always found its mark. There was no defense against it, no way to escape once it was in motion. But Gungnir represents a different kind of danger. Not chaos, but inevitability. Because when a weapon cannot fail, it removes choice. Once it is used, the outcome is already decided. And that kind of power doesn't just end battles, it defines them before they even begin. There are stories of warriors who could push beyond human limits, strength beyond reason, endurance beyond pain. Some legends describe an armor that makes that possible, the Berserker armor. When worn, it forces the body to keep going. Broken bones, ignored. Exhaustion, overridden. The wearer becomes unstoppable. But there's a problem. The armor doesn't know when to stop. It keeps pushing until there's nothing left to push. And by the time the battle is over, the weapon hasn't just defeated the enemy, it has consumed the one who used it. In Japan, certain blades were said to carry something more than craftsmanship. The Muramasa blades were known for their sharpness, but also for their influence. Stories claim that those who wielded them became different, more aggressive, more unstable, more willing to draw the blade. At some point, it stops being a tool and starts becoming a trigger. Because a weapon that changes how you think doesn't just affect the battle, it affects every decision you make before it. The spear known as Bulg was feared for one reason: what it did after it struck. Once it entered the body, it didn't just wound, it spread. Branches of the weapon would extend inside the target, making survival nearly impossible. There was no clean strike, no recovery. Only a result that couldn't be reversed. Weapons like this don't just defeat an opponent, they erase the possibility of anything after. And that kind of power is never neutral. Across different cultures, the pattern is always the same. The more powerful the weapon, the greater the cost. Sometimes it's blood, sometimes it's control, sometimes it's something less visible, but just as permanent. Because the most dangerous weapons were never just tools, they were decisions, and once they were used, there was no taking that decision back.